In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a really awesome metronome training method that's been giving me really awesome gains, and I hope it will for you as well. I'm Dave, and my channel is all about helping you create awesome neo-soul and R&B sounds on your guitar. If you're new here and that sounds like your kind of thing, make sure you hit that subscribe button and you click the notification bell so that you're notified every single time I release a new video. Let's jump straight into the content. Whether you're learning a riff, whether you're learning a lick, a solo, or a whole song, this method is going to work for any of those, anything you're learning on guitar. This method is going to get you playing things you thought were out of your skill level, out of reach, because it's definitely done that for me. I'm currently learning a solo that when I first saw it, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to learn this, and I'm really close now thanks to this method. So you're going to need three things for this method. You're going to need a metronome, you're going to need a daily allocated practice slot, so you're going to need to practice this consistently at least 5 times a week, but preferably every day. And you're gonna need some patience as well. This technique, this method that I've devised is not a quick fix, but it is effective and it works. So the first step, or the first stage to this whole technique, is preparation. So for this video, we're going to be pretending we're learning a new lick. We want to figure out how we're going to play this lick. We want to figure out the fingerings that we're going to be using. We want to figure out our picking technique. Are we going to be using upstrokes for certain notes, downstrokes for other notes? And you want to think about all the little details and articulations you'll be using. So are there hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, bends, vibrato in certain places? Make sure you've got all of those details figured out. Practice this at a very slow speed. So some of my students, when they're learning something new, they'll kind of switch up their technique when they're learning something, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Choose one thing you're gonna do and stick to it. Make sure you've got this figured out before we continue on to the next step. You should be comfortable playing it at a really slow speed without any mistakes, okay, before we move on to this next step. This next step is basically the daily practice method that we're going to be using, and it comes in 2 phases. With your dedicated practice time, I'm gonna say an hour for this example, and I think an hour is the perfect amount of time for this. You wanna dedicate half an hour to phase 1 and half an hour to phase 2, so an equal amount of time for both phases. If you've got less time, that's also fine. Probably just going to take you a little longer to make the same amount of progress, obviously. So phase number 1 is the repetition phase. We're going to be doing lots of repetitions of the lick in this phase. So we're going to be introducing a metronome here, and you want to be playing at a speed where you can play this lick perfectly. The whole method here is we're going to play 21 reps in a row before we speed up the metronome by 1 beat per minute. When I say 21 reps in a row, I mean, if you make a mistake on one of those reps, you're gonna have to start the whole set of 21 again. Now, what is a perfect rep? A perfect rep is a rep of this lick that has no buzzing notes, no accidental muting of notes, no extra string noise, and making sure that you're playing everything with the correct fingering and the right details are added as well. Okay, so something to ask yourself: if I was playing this on an album, would I want people to hear this particular rep? And if the answer is no, then it's not a perfect rep, okay? So you have to be really strict with yourself here. This whole phase is all about playing consistency and with great technique. So even if you play 20 reps in a row and that 21st rep you don't play perfectly, you do have to start again. 21 reps in a row, and then you can increase the speed by 1 beat per minute. So say we were starting at 60 beats per minute. We'd move up to 61, play 21 reps in a row again, then move up to 62, and so on until the half an hour is up. Now, there are a few reasons why we're doing this particular phase. 1, it builds muscle memory, which is really important. It builds consistency, which is really important as well. And it reinforces good technique and good habits, which is important when you reach higher speeds, as things can slip up a little bit. So this stage is really important. Once you've reached the end of your time for phase 1, so the half an hour that we've allocated to phase 1, I want you to note down the speed that you got to for phase 1. This is really important because you're going to need it later on. So now we're going to move on to phase 2. Phase 2 of your practice session is the speed training portion. So phase 1 was all about technique and consistency, whereas phase 2 is all about playing the lick as fast as possible in the shortest amount of time possible, okay? It's good to have the balance of these 2 things, playing at slower speeds and playing at faster speeds. So whereas in phase 1 we had to play 21 reps before we bumped the metronome up by 1 beat per minute, all we need in phase 2 is to play 1 rep of the lick correctly to move the speed of the metronome up by 1 beat per minute. So you're going to be making some really good ground at the start of phase 2, but of course as you get to higher speeds, you're going to get diminishing returns. That progress you're going to make is going to slow down a fair bit. So that is all there is really to phase 2. Make sure the reps that you are counting are really perfect reps, just like in phase 1. And then at the end of phase 2, just write down the speed you achieved for phase 2. Okay, so for example, let's say we reached in phase 1 90 beats per minute, and in phase 2 we reached 120 beats per minute. Make sure you note those 2 speeds down. Okay, then call it a day after that 1 hour of practice, and make sure you get a good night's sleep so that your brain can work on everything that you've been practicing. The next day you're going to come back, you've got the 2 speeds that you noted down, 90 beats per minute and 120 beats per minute. You're going to start phase 1 at the speed you reached for phase 1 the previous day. So we're going to start phase 1 at 90 beats per minute. And then when we move on to phase 2, we have a target of 120 beats per minute to beat. So we have to try and get higher than 120 beats per minute. It's not going to happen every day. Some days you're not going to make as much progress as others, but there's the target. You've got to try and get higher than 120 beats per minute. And that's the method. So you just rinse and repeat phase 1, phase 2 every single day until you meet these conditions. Okay, so you want your phase 1 speed to be 90% of the target speed, the full speed of the lick. So for example, the full speed of the lick is 150 beats per minute. 90% of that is 135 beats per minute. So if you can play phase 1, 21 reps in a row at 135 beats per minute, that's the first condition we have to meet. And then the second condition is that you can play the lick at full speed at least 3 times in a row. So if you can do both those things, then you know you've got the lick down, and then you can move on to the next thing that you want to learn. So that's the method, but there are a few tips and warnings that I think I should give you just before you go ahead and practice this. So first of all, take regular breaks, okay? So because we're doing so many repetitions, there is a risk of injury, repetitive strain injury or carpal tunnel, things like that. You don't want to get those because they're not very pleasant. Make sure you're taking regular breaks. If you feel any kind of ache in your hands, if you're tensing up a bit more than you should, then just take a break. 1 or 2 minutes is fine until your hands are feeling nice and relaxed. And actually, when your hands are more relaxed, you're going to play better. I tend to take lots and lots of breaks during my actual practice. I'd probably, in phase 1, for the first half an hour, will probably take 10 1-minute breaks. So actually, out of that half an hour, I'm only playing 20 minutes, and sometimes even more breaks. I might only be playing 15 out of the 30 minutes, but that's more effective than constantly playing repetitions when my hand is hurting and I'm not being able to play these riffs very well. So don't feel like you're wasting your time if you're taking a break when you really do need to take a break. Imagine someone in the gym, they're doing squats and they just keep doing squats. Eventually they're going to get worn out, but if they take it in sets, 3 sets of 8, for example, that's much more manageable than 1 set of 24, isn't it? And it's the same thing with our guitar playing. The second thing that you need to do while you're practicing is pay attention to your breathing. Make sure between reps, you're taking some nice deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. This is going to get lots of oxygen to your brain, which is really important. It's really easy when you're intensely practicing to not breathe properly and just forget to breathe properly, which is not very good. So make sure you do that. The next thing you need to do is, if you're making mistakes regularly, if you're making lots of mistakes, just slow the speed down. With this technique, it's designed in such a way where you shouldn't really be making too many mistakes, except for in phase 2. In phase 1, you shouldn't really be making mistakes at all. So if you're making lots of mistakes, slow that tempo down by 5, 10, even 20 if you need to beats per minute. It's going to be better for you in the long run. And obviously, you don't want to learn bad technique, bad habits, as they're really, really hard to unlearn. So you want to be making sure that you're playing everything really, really smoothly and cleanly. And the final thing, as I said at the beginning, you're going to need lots of patience. As I said, this is not a quick fix, but it is effective, and that's what we want. For example, I'm currently learning a 2-second, even if like it might not even be 2 seconds, a lick, and I've been working on it an hour a day now for about 2 weeks, I think, and I'm nearly there. But that just goes to show you, a little 2-second piece of music has taken me about 14 hours of practice to nearly get there. So what you need to do is really set your expectations. Think about how long it's going to take you to learn a lick. Say you think it's going to take 2 days, times that by 10 to 20 days, and you might be a little bit closer to a more accurate expectation for how long it's going to take you to learn something. So that's the video. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you got a lot out of this. If you did, click like, and I'd really love to hear your experiences with this technique. It's definitely worked for me, but I'm not sure how it's going to work for other people. So let me know down in the comments your experiences with this method. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That is really, really greatly appreciated. My channel is all about creating neo soul, R&B style sounds on the guitar, And I've written a book all about creating awesome chord progressions in that style. It's called Chord Charisma, and I'm offering the first 2 chapters to you for free. Those first 2 chapters are going to show you how to create an awesome sounding chord progression and make it sound even more awesome with the use of chord extensions like 9ths, 11ths and 13ths. There's tons of chord diagrams in there for you, and I explain it in a very easy, simple way, so you'll be creating chord progressions really quickly. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, the link is in the description, completely free, those first 2 chapters, and you're going to learn loads. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to enjoy this video here, so make sure you click on that, and I'll see you there. Have a good one.